Welcome back to 4TV, 4TV gang. It's a beautiful Saturday, and you're chilling with me, your girl, Lulu Blue. Today, just like every other Saturday on YouTube, on 4TV, I am bringing you a very interesting young person. And just so to introduce you to this this particular young person that I have today, has been an P3 mentor, assisted in the chemistry lab, RC for first years. He also helped with the research, forensic entomology research. He was a research assistant. And then he worked at the Center for Teaching and Learning at Blackboard. And then currently they are a forensic science junior lecturer, currently tutoring chemistry. And I don't know, the cream at the top, they are doing their masters. Help me, or let's put our hands together and welcome Juan Botha. Welcome to 4TV, Juan.
Hi, Lila Blue. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm happy to be here too.
Before we dive into the conversation that we have today, I just want to play a little something for you. Hopefully, this one is not disappointing. And I want you, when after playing this particular thing, I want you to tell me or tell the guest what it reminds you of.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
What does it remind you of?
It reminds me of my time as RC first years. I think those who know me and those who've witnessed my my time or my term as an RC will know that this is the song that we'd always sing to lead us into meetings or whenever. And to top it off, the song that was sang at the graduations that the first years accompanied me with.
I like that because I got it from the video you actually posted on your graduation day.
Yeah, I can tell.
And I like the fact that you kept the relationship going even after you were no longer an RC. But the house loved you so much that they actually came and sang on your graduation day.
Yeah. That was an honor.
So now, can you please just take us through your leadership journey? When did you discover that I can be a leader, or I want to dive into leadership as part of my career growth?
I think my leadership journey started or was initiated in 2015 when I started serving in the Children's Parliament in South Africa. And since then, I think I've went from one position to the other one. And yeah, so I started off as the Children's Rights Ambassador of the Eastern Cape in 2015. And that came after I was appointed in the Children's Parliament. And then after that, I became a chairperson or president of organization for several clubs and organizations at my former high school. I then also became the head boy. And for me, one of those in high school that still stand out was serving as the president of the Interact Club at that time. And obviously, after finishing high school, I came to university. In my first year, I was a very vocal first year, although I had no official title or leadership position, to put it in that way. In my second year, I was then appointed as a peer mentor or P3 mentor. Afterwards, I then became an RC. And yeah, so it's quite a journey, but
Can
it
you
all
please?
started in 2015.
It sounds very interesting. And just listening to you, I'm just like, a children's parliament. What do you guys do in a children's parliament, and why was it important?
So the Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament is based on the principle that nothing about us without us. So there was a realization that the actual South African Parliament cannot speak on behalf of children because they cannot directly relate to children issues. So then our government, through the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, then initiated the program called the Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament. And it will be basically, it's an annual event where children from different districts all across South Africa come to represent the provinces and to come and speak and debate on children issues. And then they come up with recommendations on possible solutions. They then sign a declaration, which is submitted to the Minister of Social Development. She then signs it and somehow promises to respond to it within a department. So it's basically a parliament, but by children and for children.
How old were you when you were actually part of this parliament?
When my first parliament, calling to parliament, I would put it like that, I was 14 years old. I think, yeah, I was still 14 years old
Mm.
when I was called the first time to parliament.
That's interesting. 14 years old, you were really occupying leadership positions. And I find this a whole idea of a children's parliament very interesting because you cannot speak for Black people if you're not Black because you don't know how it is to be Black. So it also brings back that conversation that you can't speak for children if you're not a child because you don't know what children are going through. You all have to listen to what they want. So what are some of the debates that you guys had within the parliament? Because you spoke about the debates that you guys would have.
Yes, I know in that year, 2015, the theme for that specific year was claiming our rights to safety and protection. And all the debates were around those specific topics because there's a lot of things that we discuss. Like, I know one of the burning issues was child trafficking, ukutwala being another issue, other one being child-headed homes. And yeah, so there were so many things we're discussing. Safety in schools was also one of them. One of the things we were recommending was the government actually strengthening um, where they would approve a tablet to be or a shebeen. So we wanted it not to be very close to schools because we saw that as a distraction to the academic processes at schools. Yeah, and there were so many things that we debated just surrounding safety and protection of children. I
Mhm.
know one of the things that I actually accomplished in my specific district was it was a bit disappointing seeing that people actually have to go to a public library and have to pay for services. So you have to pay to make photocopies, you have to pay to to use the internet. So I then wrote a demand to the local mayor and the councillors in charge of the library at that time, and they actually dropped the internet prices, and they also decreased the page per price per copy
Mm.
prices. And after that, internet was free at my public library till I think up until I finished grade 12. So I'm not sure what the conditions are now, but that's one of the things that I actually managed to accomplish within
That time,
my
your time.
hometown, and also claiming that the right to education should be free and going to the library is actually for educational purposes. So that's what drove that initiative.
Interesting. It's like you read my questions because one of the questions that I actually wanted to ask you is what are the things that you have achieved in your offices, like in your time in different offices. But before we get to that question, hopefully I don't forget to ask it later on. Can you just tell me some of the challenges that you faced in your first year? And how when you became RC you were able to like pave a better way for first years that you were actually RC too as they navigated the university space.
Okay, I think you might know the nature of residences and the so-called residence cultures are at the UFS. And I think one of the major issues I had with, or one of the problems I encountered was um, the exclusion of first years and first years being treated less students than other people in the house. So that kind of oppression that first experience, I think that was one of the major challenges I faced. And of course, something that would be general to all of us would be transitioning to university, coming from high school, especially from the location in the high school to now to university where you have to adjust to technology and the use of just English as a medium of instruction. So yeah, I think those are two common types of problems I faced. And to answer how I actually changed them to first years, that's one of the reasons, in fact, why I became an RC first years, because I always believe in don't do to others what you don't want to be done to you. So I sort of abolished all of those policies and cultures and created a more inclusive space for even first year students, where first years would be equally treated as other house members. And in terms of transitioning, I mean, just sharing one's experience with first years and try and remove such obstacles. I mentioned that technology and the use of that became a problem in university. So the first thing I did when the first years moved in was try to identify who cannot use a computer. And you'd be shocked that there's some people who come to university who've never touched or used a computer in their lives before. So just having those one-on-one sessions with assistance of the mentors so that we just take someone to how to switch the computer on, how to navigate it, how to go onto the university's website, how to access Blackboard and all of that, I think was something that I tried to do. Yes, and also working at Blackboard this year was also sort of
I was
doing
actually
that, but now just being more official title.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I get that. That's very interesting. So you are one student who was very much excelling in his studies and also excelling in his leadership role. Clearly, because you changed the lives, touched the lives of first years and changed certain norms and, challenged certain norms and eventually changed them. So now you are one person who cum lauded his degree, forensic sciences, did the same for his honors, and now you're actually doing your masters. Can you just take us through that? Because I do think that a lot of people, the way they were dealing with the academics changed, hit COVID, and yeah, it caused a lot of rambles. How did you manage to keep on getting those good grades through COVID, post COVID, pre COVID?
Okay, pre-COVID, I think that was also my transition state first, just trying to get settled into the university environment. And I think compared to other people, COVID for me was actually a benefit and a bonus. I was actually happy when I found out that the academic activity or program would be moved fully online. But at least for the first few months, of course, for us who were doing science at that time. But for me, COVID was more flexible academically because you study at your own pace, at your own time, without being rushed. So I think when we were still face to face, you have to be at class at 8 o'clock to nine
Mm.
o'clock. You cannot run away, whether you are in the mood or not. But with COVID, you download your slides and you go through them whenever you want to, whether it's at 1 a.m., 5 p.m., 2 p.m., whenever you want to. So there was actually no restriction with how you teach yourself. Um, but of course, tests and assessments had time restrictions, but in terms of studying, I feel like that was a benefit from me.
And then post COVID,
Post
how was
COVID, then
the
now you have to
transition?
retransition back. So COVID, you have to retransition back to that life. Um, yeah, it was not easy too, but yeah, also with the fear of life. Um, I think not only fearing academically, also having a fear for your life. But at least for us who have been there pre-COVID at university, it was not an actual transition. It was just looking back to to the old way. But I feel like it must have probably been difficult for people who entered the university during COVID and
Mm,
they don't know how it was. So now going back to face was probably difficult for them. But for us, it was more, or for me, rather, it was more of readapting to the old teaching way, which
mm-hmm,
was face to face. But I think you'd also agree that for us, there was actually COVID existed about just 3 months or so, because after that, for those who are doing science, we had to come back to campus. We
mm-hmm.
actually attended some classes still, um, rather not classes, but tests
Practicals.
or face to face. Although we had to, yeah, we had to do practicals, we had to write semester tests face to face. Although we had to teach ourselves online. So I
Mm,
feel like the transition was not difficult for at least us because we were already um, initiated back into that type of learning slightly and bit by bit up until everything went back to normal.
okay. So why forensic sciences?
It's a long story, but forensic sciences, initially I wanted to do medicine when I
Mm.
got to varsity, like many of us, and I ended up
In the
in
BSc,
forensic.
yeah, many people in the
Yeah,
BSc. I remember there was even a lecturer who at first was like, many of you here are here because you couldn't make it to medicine. Like that was a big deal, and everyone went, making noise, like, why are you saying that? And they're like, yeah, some of you are going to make it back to are going to like go back, like, okay, do a year and then be able to enter into the program next year. And some of you are going to be stuck here. So you better start loving the degree you're doing right now.
yes. I was probably one of the people who fell in love with the degree and then I got stuck.
Mm.
Because I started in our first year, we started doing a module which was not compulsory. It was an extra subject. If you wanted to take it, you take it. We did anatomy, um, and I then realized I don't actually love the human body, and the way of learning the module for me did not work. So I preferred doing calculations and doing chemistry instead of having to learn the human structure and the the tiny bits in the human body. So I didn't enjoy that. And people usually say I sound cruel for this, but that's also the year I actually realized I would rather see people dead than alive. I didn't have the patience for medicine, and I then decided, no, let me stick with forensics. And
Mm-mm.
also, I'm a very curious person. I don't know if you've ever been to a crime scene or where there was an accident, and when the police come, then they cordon the area off. I would always wonder what's going on inside. I wonder what are they going to do to that body? Where's the body going to go to from here? I wonder what are they going to do with those bullets lying around? How are they going to remove this car? How are they going to how are they going to remove the body from the car? And all of that. So I always
Mm.
wondered what's going on the inside of a crime scene. So I think yeah, also my curiosity actually persuaded me to stay in
So,
forensics.
so you were not afraid when you had to do your first practical with an actual dead body?
It's of course it's human nature for all of us that as soon as you get close to any lifeless body, because I mean this person has been alive before, so it's human nature. Even now, when we have to go to the morgue, whenever you enter there, emotionally you are prepared and physically to deal with it, but there's always that human nature. I think it's just the way you respond to it. That you'll have some anxiety for about a second or two. So then you have to prepare yourself emotionally to deal with it. So in my first year, not really, because initially we worked with different body parts in anatomy, not knowing they were actual human bodies. So later on, then we started asking, what is this? Where do you get this? And that's only when we were told they actually cadaver remains. And yeah, so initially I did not know what I'm working with. I thought it's plastic or it's
Mm-mm.
um, some model of some sort that's mimicking the human body. But yeah, every time to answer your question, every time when you step next to a disease, there is some way. It's normal. You feel it's a normal way to feel like that, but it's also somehow forcing you to respect this as a person was there before,
Mm-hmm.
and also to to treat the disease in a dignified manner.
Okay, interesting. So what would you say made your journey easier?
My academic journey,
Yes.
the love for my field, just loving it would make it easy. I mean, having to study between forensics and chemistry, I would always prefer studying forensics, although that I'm a chemist now. But studying forensics, just opening your book to study forensics for because you love the field of study and you
Mm,
find it interesting. Studying it was not difficult.
mm.
So yeah, what made it easy for me was actually loving the field.
Would you say it's very important for people to choose careers that they are passionate about, like things that they actually love doing, instead of like going where the money's at?
Yeah, most definitely. Because I mean, and I always tell grade 12 that to start to apply for what they love. Because I mean, I know people who actually completed medicine degrees and then came to forensics, or people who did medicine degrees and then went for teaching, or someone who did forensics and then after that law, or someone with a BSc who's now a politician. So definitely because you not enjoy your work. And I think for me, my passion has been to teach. So I think that's where I ended up being where I am now because I love my field of study, but I also have a passion for teaching. So I think I would be a better forensics lecturer than being a forensic investigator in the police force one day.
Mm.
So enjoying what you do and having a love for it would make it much easier. And I think someone once told me that go for a field or career which you'd be excited to wake up to every day. So when you wake up in the morning, could you be excited to go and do that specific job? So waking up every day to teach, I wouldn't mind that because I enjoy it. And also to teach more specifically forensics, um, that too because I have a love for it. So yeah, go for what you love.
Okay, I love that. I love that a lot. And listening to you speaking about waking up every morning, going to a job to do something that you love, takes me back to something that you said earlier. You said fear for our lives, right? And as you're talking about that, I actually wanted to ask you that would you say that one of the things that pushes you to actually wake up in the morning and do something is fear of being in the streets and not having like food on the table and stuff like that?
I mean, that also pushes us, especially for someone who comes from a background that's not so guaranteed for the future. Because I mean, if I for one, if I had parents who were millionaires and I know they're gonna leave me with um, millions of friends, I wouldn't have been here to even complete my studies because I would have had something to fall back on.
Mm.
So just having a fear of life in general and where it will put you one day, I mean, that's something that pushes us. And I think that's something that pushes all of us while you are studying and you open your book. The fear of the unknown and the fear of sitting at home one day and going back to where you've come from empty-handed is actually also what drives us to push every day.
I think another thing I actually want to play something for you because you guys, we were married to you guys. I don't know if you get that, right? We were married to your race. So there was a song that we used to sing. So I asked a friend to sing it for me, but then now I think they're a little bit disturbed somewhere. I don't know if you would remember the song. So it says, Carrier man, Mobo, man," something like that. Do you remember the song
Yeah, I,
from your first year? Do you remember the
yeah,
lyrics?
I remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, not all of it. I know it if I have to sing it to a fellow career man, but citing the lyrics alone, no.
I
I would maybe the house song instead of that. But please don't ask me to sing. I'm a very bad singer.
You know, it's crazy because I don't remember the lyrics, but I remember we had a song. We had a song. So the friend was supposed to sing it for me. Unfortunately, they can't sing it for me. But then I'm also very curious. You have touched on it, but I'm also very curious about this journey that you're on. You So you wrote somewhere that the journey hasn't ended until the gown has changed its color, or until the color of the gown has
Okay.
changed, right? So were you always, did you always knew you wanted to be a lecturer, or it is something that came to you and you're like, okay, fine, you know, like when you started doing forensic and falling in love in forensic, obviously, but did you know at that time that I actually want to get a PhD? And what would you advise the next person who like want to be a lecturer one day to consider?
Okay, so lecturing is quite something complex because some lecturers actually do not have a passion for teaching, but because they are highly skilled and knowledged in their fields of studies, then they become lecturers. But I mean, a benefit to that would be the love for teaching, because then you'd love transferring the knowledge to other people. No, I never thought I would want to become a lecturer. I know I always wanted to change my title. Thus, in that quote, I say, up until the color of the gown and the title changes, the journey continues. But I'm always someone, I want to push myself to an extent whereby I cannot push myself anymore. And I mean, something we used to joke about with my friends in first year is that we said we were born misters. We do not want to die with the same title we were born with. So I think there's also something that indirectly pushes me because I want to change my title, and but also being in lecturing because I think that that's a benefit to be
Mhm,
an actual full-time lecturer. You have to at least be a doctor or professor in your field of study.
mm,
So for someone, oh, just to the after my first year of science, I then decided this might not be for me. I'm leaving. I actually have a passion for teaching. I
mm,
might want to change to a Bachelor of Education. And then I fell in love because in our first year, we were not doing forensics as of yet. We were doing all these general science modules,
mm,
zoology, entomology, chemistry, calculus, physics. And then only in our second year, we started majoring. And then in my second year, when I started doing actual forensics, then I actually enjoyed the subject. And I was like, okay, let me give it a try. Maybe go for education after this. But then afterwards, I then realized, no, but I can actually teach in forensics. So I don't have to throw my degree away or just forget about it. Let me stick to forensics and let me see if I can change my title. It might not be now because that's always complicated. It's not like an undergrad or an honors degree where you know you do it in 1 year and it's a fixed program. With an MSc and PhD, it's research based and you don't actually know when you'll get your outcomes or what you are looking for. So whenever that is, that's why I said up until that changes, the journey will continue. So of course, I have to finish my MSc first, which I'm planning to do within the next 2 years. And then afterwards, if I am admitted to enroll for a PhD, then I will, because all of that is still undecided. Because it's like a grade 12 saying, I know I'm going to do medicine next year. It's not something you're definite about because all will depend on resources and availability of funds and actually research topics being available at that time.
oh,
And
okay.
also being admitted, qualifying for admission.
And you would want to remain at the UFS.
Um, for now, yes. Because the reason why I say for now is because the UFS is the only institution thus far that actually offers qualifications in straight forensics. Other universities I know, which I don't want to mention, I think there are about two in South Africa, they actually have forensics, but it's more medically related. So that's
Mm.
more medical forensics. Whereas the UFS, we are more into forensics as the study of science relating to crime. So So yeah, that's why I'll stick around at the VFS.
That's quite interesting. So for those who like reading, that like going further into, like that are excited about your career right now, who would want to read about the research that you did, can you please tell us what your research was about and where they can find it, obviously?
Okay, so my undergrad degree was forensics, a Bachelor of Science majoring in forensics, and then I also majored in chemistry. And then in my honors year, I then did forensic chemistry, which was a combination of chemistry and forensics. And the active research that I was doing was the analysis of ink in question documents. When a document was forged, can we tell whether from a piece of paper, can we tell that this specific pen wrote this specific note? So that was my research. So it included thin layer chromatography to analyze the chemistry of the inks, and also microscopy to differentiate between two pens, because sometimes the inks of pens from the same company can be the same,
Mm.
the chemistry thereof, but microscopy wise, they will be different. So I then also employed microscopy in that, and also um, the video spectral comparator equipment. So that was that, and my passive research, which was for half of my qualification, I did the smell of death. So always this always sounds a bit it freaks people out, but I wanted to see if we can quantify or rather qualify the smell of death. So can we tell if there was a dead body that was a specific place just with the chemicals that the body might have released in the soil? Because we know from forensic entomology that a body decomposes, and
Mm-hmm.
when it decomposes, it actually releases all these chemicals. And my research has discovered that from other people's research, the body actually releases more than 200. If I'm not remembering now wrong, but about 200 compounds and chemicals. And we can use these not only to tell if there was a dead body at a specific place, but we can also tell how long the person has been there. So yeah, that was it. It was titled "The Smell of Death," and yeah. So, but I'm now doing my master's on psilocybin or magic mushrooms, and I cannot go into depth on that because of the nature of my research and the current legal status quo of psilocybin in South Africa. But it's currently on psilocybin mushrooms. It's a mushroom, commonly known as shrooms or magic mushrooms. And when you ingest them, they actually contain a drug, which is known as psilocin and psilocybin. So when you ingest those drugs, you actually become high. So my research is currently based on that, because the chemical in the mushroom is chemistry, and obviously there are legal aspects to it because it's an illegal drug. So
Mm.
that's what makes it forensic chemistry. So there's nothing published on my work as of yet, so it cannot be found. However, there is existing research, similar research to what I did or what I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
on Google Scholar and elsewhere on the internet. So people are interested can look on that, and yeah, there's actually quite a lot of things we study in forensics.
I think I should have quite a lot of these meetings because I'm learning a lot. I'm learning about the smell of death, the compounds that get released out of the body when a person dies. I would honestly didn't know a thing about that. It sounds like you're in a very exciting field, but scary at the same time. Like you're just playing with the word death around like it's nothing, you know? Do you know there's actual Paul advertisements when they ask, have you had the conversation? Can you have the conversation about death? And people don't want to talk about it. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm gonna die. I don't want to die, you know?
Us, it's more, yeah, from a scientific point of view, more than spiritual and psychological. And for us, it's more speaking on behalf of the dead. So forensics has to do with crime. So whenever crime is committed and there is death that was caused, It rests on us as forensic scientists to actually solve the crime and to speak on behalf of the deceased. So you are there to tell what happened to them. So one of the fields of forensic sciences, or rather just forensics, is forensic pathology, which
Mm.
are the doctors who perform postmortems in mortuaries. So there's a captain I know in the police who likes to refer to those people as they are teaching the dead. So you also, the mortuary refers to the mortuary as the place where the dead is teaching the living. So they will tell them what happened, because unfortunately they're not there to explain to the courtroom or to society what happened to them. So we are there as agents to speak on behalf, to investigate their deaths and to relay a story with a scientific background and scientific evidence to the court to explain what happened, and this might then help in solving that person's death or the crime that's related to that person's death being caused. So for us, we are in one of my talks last year, and also sometimes I tell students, we are agents for the dead and also ambassadors because we speak on behalf of them to explain what had happened without them being there, of course, because they don't have the privilege of narrating these stories anymore. You can go and check out forensic files and FBI programs. They actually give you a very nice overview of what forensic investigators and forensic scientists do.
Do
So
you
yeah, just
think
check
that
those out.
series like Scandal, do you watch series?
No, I don't.
You don't. I was about to ask about regarding this other series. So there are series, of course, that are made regarding, your crime scenes and stuff like that. I just wanted to ask your opinion about them, whether you think such series that are made in America do justice to your field, you know. With obviously it's they are
It's
playing
quite
around with fiction and actual the actual truth, but do you think it does justice to just give people an overview of actually what actually happens in the forensic world, in the maybe in the police force, because you guys have a close relationship obviously with that field, yeah.
so for an ordinary curious person, yes, it tells you what the field is about. It gives you a very nice overview for someone who doesn't know what forensic sciences is. But to some extent, it's also quite bad, especially for us in forensics. It's known also as it's called the CSI effect. So it brings about the CSI effect in individuals, and this is described as people having high expectations of the field, and because those scenes are dramatized, people expect crimes to be solved perfectly within a day or two, and even after case has gone cold, people believe that a case can be solved whenever, and that's
Mm,
not how it's like in reality. Unfortunately, and I think it's what we are also seeing now with one of the cases that's very popular in South Africa of the soccer player was killed. Sometimes cases can drag a very long time, although there's someone in forensics who's involved. Unrealistic expectation from people in the legal fraternity that crime, you as a forensic scientist, you should solve this crime. The evidence that you want us to give should reach a certain standard. There are, of course, requirements for evidence to admit it into courtrooms, but sometimes there's a clash between you giving your scientific opinion in courtroom to people who have no background in science. And sometimes there's a big misunderstanding because what you are delivering is what you have discovered scientifically. And sometimes it's difficult to relate such then to people with no scientific background. So yes, it's series and shows on forensics are good for knowledge and for people to learn about the field, but then they bring about the CSI effect, which is the unrealistic expectation that people have of people in forensics. And
mm,
also another thing, those shows paint this picture that forensics is about death. Not all forensic fields are Some are not even related to death at all. For example, the field that I'm in, forensic chemistry, is most commonly focused on drugs, um, question documents, and fire ammunition. So firearm ammunition, sorry, gunshot residue. So you don't actually have to work with a dead body at all, especially in forensic chemistry. Um, Forensic entomology might deal with dead bodies, and then other fields like trace evidence analysts and forensic geneticists. Those people also don't have to encounter work with dead bodies at all. Because when you're a forensic geneticist, you receive a blood sample and that's what you analyze. When you are a fingerprint expert, you don't even see the dead body whose fingerprints that you are dealing with. And sometimes it's a fingerprint from house break-in. So science, we are applying science to solve crime. So not all crimes lead to death. So people have this misconception that forensic is the study of death for the purpose of the law. Not necessarily. Not all fields of forensics actually deal with dead bodies.
And that's quite interesting. And thank you so much for clearing that up because I do understand that you the more you study about or the more you come across young people who want to get into the field or are just interested in general, that's when you get to find out a lot of misconceptions that are out there, going out there, and you're like, okay, this is how we can correct this misconception. I just want us to wrap up because I feel like it's going to be way too long. However, it has been very interesting sitting with you, hearing you talk about all these things. There's so much to your field and to your growth as an individual in leadership as well that you can actually share with us. I hope you don't mind joining us next time just to share some more insight on your leadership. You're not gonna get time to say your last words, but I feel like they have heard a lot from you, my viewers, and they're happy that you were here. But one last question for myself: would you donate your body for research purposes?
I'm not sure about that. No, 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 no. As a
Okay.
scientist, I might, but not as a Christian.
Oh, you are Christian. I actually wanted to ask you about your religion when you're talking about how science, of how you guys are relaying things from a science perspective of things. I wanted to ask you the question.